Shri Guroho Shri Yudapadagamam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanshche Shri Rupam Sadrijatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamshche He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Saptakanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Harpriye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhudyayivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasati Gaur Bhakta-vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. In the end of his 10th canto commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur prays to Lord Gopal, and so do I. Madgavir Abhi Gopala Svikurya Kripaya Yadi Tadaivasam Payaha Pitva Krishna Yusta Priyajanaha. That means, my dear Lord Gopal, only if you accept my words as your cows will they provide sweet milk to give pleasure to your pure devotees. So we had some questions. Anybody have any questions? You can ask any questions. Somebody gave me 3 questions. I don't know where they came from. But if the person who originated those questions would like to elaborate on exactly what they mean, because it wasn't clear to me, then we can talk about that. I know that somebody wanted to know about the importance of service. That kind of depends on your definition of service, so I have to know what you mean by service, because it can mean different things to different people. But in general, we serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's how He's known, by bhakti. Bhakti means also rendering service to the Lord. 9 ways to do this: hearing, chanting, remembering, offering prayers, offering worship, becoming a servant to the Lord's lotus feet, becoming a friend with the Lord, surrendering everything to the Lord in this way, various ways. But in Kali Yuga, the main thing is encouraged Kalau Tadhari Kirtanat. By chanting Krishna's name, you can realize God very easily in Kali Yuga. Maybe not easily, simply. You can very simply realize God. But it's not an easy thing because we're infected, and we have to hear to get the inspiration to chant properly, and we have to hear very carefully, and we have to hear continuously, in fact. Someone may ask, in fact, Sridhar Swami does ask in his commentary on 1st Canto, 2nd chapter, text number 15, he raises the question that if just by hearing about the Lord, all one's karma is eradicated, well, that sounds great, but what happens to those persons who don't have a taste for hearing? Anybody can answer this question? What happens if you don't have a taste for hearing? Then what do you do? Yeah, you know that. He answers it in the next verse. Maharaj will recite. Sure.
By engaging in the service of the Mahabharata. My God, okay, so complicated. My understanding, acting in Jagannath's mood here, I don't know Mukund, but it seems to me that the pure devotee, the Uttamadhikari, they give us the opportunity to serve through so many ways in our natural inclinations in Varna Ashram, and then by doing that, it's a verse, actually, I don't know. I can't remember the exact verse. And then the Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. And by doing that, then we develop a taste for hearing and chanting.
Manush, can you read the 2nd chapter of the 1st canto? You must have it here, I think, or somewhere. 1st canto, chapter 2. Or, nowadays everybody keeps things on their phones. who reads books anymore. Only Facebook. Anyway, yeah, that's Sridhar Swami's introduction to text number 16 of that chapter, second chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, Divinity and Divine Service, in which it's stated by Vyasa himself, Shushrushoho Shrolathanasya Vasudeva Katharuchi Syan Mahat Sevaya Vipra Punya Tirthana Shevanat. For those persons like us who really don't have much taste for hearing, the way to gain that taste for hearing is service. Service to whom? To the person who is sinless. This is the important thing. This verse is very closely related to 3rd Canto, chapter 25, text number 25, which I'm not going to ask you to go chase. Bring the book, please. But they're very closely related. They deal with the same topic and the same process, I should say. So let's dive right in. The whole chapter, actually, chapter 2 of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the whole chapter is worth memorizing. Why do I say that? Because every single verse in that chapter is very often quoted by Srila Prabhupada and all of his predecessors. In other words, this is the main content of the process of Krishna consciousness, first spelled out for us in the first canto. So, with sword in hand, this is text 15, intelligent men cut through the binding knots of reactionary work, karma, by remembering the personality of Godhead. Therefore, who will not pay attention to his message? The answer is a person who doesn't have a taste. And that's most of us, unfortunately. So Sridhar Swami has raised this question, what to do? I don't have a taste. The answer comes, Shushrusho Shradathanasya Vasudeva Katharuchihi Syan Mahat Sevaya Vipraha Punya Tirthana Shevanat. O twice-born sages, by serving those devotees who are completely freed from all vice, great service is done. By such service, one gains affinity for hearing the messages of Vasudeva. Ding, 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 ding. Let's hear that again, because we were distracted. O twice-born sages, by serving those devotees who are completely free from all vice, great service is done. By such service, one gains affinity for hearing the messages of Vasudeva. Tomorrow in the Srimad Bhagavatam class, we will hear about this name, Vasudeva, so I'm not going to talk about it now. But this is the answer in a nutshell. And the whole key is Mahat Seva. What does Mahat Seva mean? You can interpret that compound in two ways. Number one, Mahat Seva. You do great service. Just like we were appreciating our former temple president, Shyam Sundar Prabhu, who by his blood, sweat, and tears, almost single-handedly put together such a beautiful temple of Sri Sri Radhanila Madhava that all of us are taking advantage of. Future generations will look at the little plaque, or somewhere it should be there, and they will say, who was that great personality who did such a wonderful seva? So this is called Mahat Seva. So that's one way to interpret great service. Otherwise, another way to interpret it, and I think the main way to interpret it, is Mahat Seva means you're serving that person who is himself Mahat. Mahatma, in other words. And in the commentaries, all of the commentaries, unanimously, they define who is that Mahatma, because sometimes we rubber stamp a politician as a Mahatma, or this one is a Mahatma, that one is Mahatma. So, Mahatma, according to Sridhar Swami and others, means someone who is nishpapa, sinless. And that is represented in Srila Prabhupada's translation when he says, devotees who are completely free from all vice. What kinds of vices do we have? Illicit sex, meat eating, intoxication, gambling, right? Every bad habit, gossiping about others, we can go on and on and on. The list is endless. So this is the point. A person who is non-envious, a person who is really advanced, a person who has become Mahatma, really great soul, that person is freed from all these sins, and when you serve that person, you become like that person. Whoever you serve, you become like that person. So be careful who you serve. Govinda Das Kaviraj, in his Brajapuri song, we sing sometimes, Bhajahore Man Shri Nandanandam. So he says, what is that? Viphala Sevenu Kripana Durjana. I'm serving Kripanas and Durjanas. Wicked people and miserly people, small-minded people. I'm serving them. So how can you expect to become Mahatma if you're serving a Duratma? What is the definition of Duratma and Mahatma? I don't know where this is from. Probably from some Subhashita, Sangraha somewhere. I was speaking with a poet, with a pujari, in Upal. Anyone here from Hyderabad? Raise your hand. You must have come here by the grace of Chilikuru Balaji. I know all about him. I knew him before he was famous, mind you. He became ridiculously famous only within the last 20 years. He gives out visas. They call him Visa Balaji. All Telugu people especially know exactly who he is. So I was speaking with one Pandit there in Hyderabad, outside Hyderabad, Upal. And we were discussing Krishna Katha, and so he just happened to quote this wonderful verse which defines Duratma and Mahatma. You ready for this? Manasi ekam, vachasi ekam, karmani ekam, mahatmanaha. A Mahatma is somebody who what he thinks, what he says, what he does, sabhi ek se hain. All the same thing, one thing only. He's focused. That's called in Bhagavad Gita, Vyavasayat Vigabuddhi, fixed. And on the other hand, the Duratma is also defined, Manasyanyam, Vachasyanyam, Karmanyanyam, Duratmanaha. He says one thing, he's thinking a different thing, and he's doing something else altogether. This is a rascal. So Mahatma, if you serve a Duratma, you will become one of them. It's only natural. At least because of the principle that Sangat Sanjayate Kamaha. Your desires are formed from the association that you keep most of the time. Think about this. What kind of association are you taking most of the time? Think about it. It's very serious business. Because here we have a short window of opportunity to do something about our predicament. If you think you're suffering now, oh, believe me, it can always get worse. It can always get worse. And now we actually have the opportunity as human beings to get free from suffering forever, to make a permanent solution. Look at it this way. We were driving, where were we? You know, I travel so much, it's like the cities just blur into one another. I don't know where I am. Yesterday I was thinking, what country am I in? I think I was in India going to the airport from Vrindavan to Delhi. And in the taxi, you know how it is, especially in India, when the windows are closed and there's a fly inside the taxi. And you can't get rid of this guy. He wants out, you also want him out, but because of the karma, you know, you open the window and then he flies the other way, and then you close the window because you definitely don't want to breathe the Delhi air. And anyway, so this is the human life and opportunity to take to Krishna consciousness is just like that fly coming just near the window when you open it, and then he goes out. He's free. And we can also be like that. But it's a short opportunity only, because, you know, the gods, whoever's in charge of all of our respective karmic trajectories, they have their own agenda to fulfill, and you've got your own, you know, so much product of karma is on the docket to be experienced, and you don't know where you're going next time. But if you work judiciously as a human being, then you can actually become freed from all this suffering. And the best way to do that, you find somebody who's actually pure, and you serve that person. Because if you serve that person, not only do you become like that person, but you will gain by some inexplicably mysterious process, mystical process, you will gain a taste for hearing about Vasudeva. And when you hear about Vasudeva, then what is your mind full of? Vasudeva. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
You tune into tomorrow's Srimad Bhagavatam class and you will hear what Sridhar Swami says about this mantra in his commentary on the second canto, first chapter of text number 1, or rather on the invocation. And Srila Prabhupada also says likewise. The result of all yoga, all charity, all penance, everything you can get just by worshipping Vasudeva Hari, Paramananda Hari. So, this is, human life is this opportunity, but we want to serve a devotee, pure devotee. Pure devotee means, naturally, he must be sinless. There's no such thing as a sinful pure devotee. That's a very rare aberration. I mean, Krishna himself, truth be told, Krishna admits, sometimes it can happen. What verse am I thinking of in Bhagavad Gita, where he says, refers to this? He's a great soul, but he does something really bad. Aviched? Sudurachara. Not just durachara, sudurachara. Really, really bad. Yes, abominable. So it can happen, but in general, pure devotee means he doesn't even have the tendency to sin. He doesn't have time for it. He's not the least bit interested. It's not like those who are chanting Hare Krishna for 50 years. I'm one of them. 47 years ago, updated. Somebody mentioned in the biodata. So, it's not like I'm struggling, fending off desires to go and visit KFC sometimes. It's not like that. Not at all. Not even on the map, my friends. Not even there. And you will be tempted, actually. Once when I was a young boy, I was maybe 15 or 16 years old when I joined ISKCON, and they sent us out on Sankirtana. Sankirtana in those days means you have to go to some parking lot and you have to try to sell Srila Prabhupada's books to somebody, anybody. So one girl came and she was very interested in the books I was showing her, and she definitely really wanted the book. And so I told her, you just, it's okay, you don't have to give very much, just whatever you can give, you can give. And she said, well, I don't have any money. All I have is myself, she said. 15-year-old brahmachari. So, sometimes when you go on Sankirtan, this kind of thing happens. So other times you go on Sankirtan and people try to kill you or rob you. Or you get frozen in the snow, which also happened to me in the winter of 1976. Got frostbite from being on the parking lot for 12 hours a day, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And Radha Damodar party was so strict that they would not give you breakfast the next morning unless you could produce a new shloka, kantastha, by memory. That's how I learned so many verses. Anyway, you will be tempted, and this is part of the process. It's not accidental, it's not by chance. There's someone watching. There's someone arranging it, in fact. Who is that? Balaram. He's Balaram in charge of this kind of thing. Balaram. Because he is the chief assistant for Lord Krishna and Lord Krishna's pastimes. What is that verse? Brajendranandana Jay Shachisuto Hailoshe Balaram Hailo Nitai. In Kali Yuga, Krishna and Balaram, they come in the form of devotees. Balaram has become Nitai, and Brajendranandan has become Shachisuta. So they're the ones who are in charge of all of our experiences in Krishna consciousness, all of our challenges in Krishna consciousness, all of our inspiration in Krishna. Everything is coming from them. You should not see it otherwise. This is what Bhagavatam means when it says, Bhayam dvatiya bhiniveshatasya nishada paryasya paryayosmriti. You should not perceive something non-Krishna. Never. That is the real Advaita. They talk about Advaita, they have no idea what Advaita really means. Kaivalya. Kaivalya actually means only Krishna. Sarvam Khalu Idam Brahma. This is the Shruti mantra. But really, from the Vaishnava perspective, it's something more like Sarvam Khalu Idam Radha or Balaram. So devotees, they see everything as Krishna's mercy. This is Pushti Marga philosophy, all Shuddhadvaita, purified monism, because they don't see anything as non-Krishna. Everything is coming in from Krishna. That is a fact. Vasudeva, to use that name again, Sarvamiti. Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha. The person who can see like that, he is the Mahatma. And by serving that person, you can gain a taste for hearing about Krishna. Vasudeva Kathadachi, hearing about Vasudeva. Who is Vasudeva? The son of Vasudeva. Such a great story, such a great mysterious Leela as the Lord's appearance in this world. And those personalities who became his parents. It's inconceivable to us what kinds of bhakti they performed, what kinds of austerities that they performed. To be so blessed. Anyway, so this is the importance of service, at least. This is one aspect of the importance of service. We call it service to Krishna, but really, for all practical intents and purposes, it means service to the Lord's devotees. Why do we say this? 9th canto. Anybody know the verse I'm thinking of? What does it mean to be Krishna's devotee? Somebody who claims that he's my devotee is not really my devotee, but someone who claims to be, this is Adi Purana actually. Yeah, Krishna says someone who is the devotee of my devotee is the real devotee. And 9th canto also, Krishna himself says, Aham Bhakta Paradhina. I'm subservient to my devotees. We see this. Practically we can see it. Why does Krishna come to this world if not to show us how much he's willing to give himself to us if we give ourselves to him? He's carrying the shoes of Nanda Maharaj on his head. We have a beautiful mural in our Vrindavan ISKCON temple. So many different colored stones inlaid in the wall. And it shows this picture. Nanda and Yashoda, and Krishna's coming to them and looking up at them very wonderfully with this very submissive mood. And he's got Nanda's shoes on his head. God puts his devotee's shoes on his head. So we have no idea what love really means, actually, because what passes as love in this world is a perverse affair. That's why we love someone now, but if the deal is broken, just like they have these prenuptial agreements, right? People get married. It's like a contract, a business arrangement. And the contract is broken, the so-called love goes to hell. Or sometimes it's worse than that. Prabhupada, he writes in one of his purports, sometimes these so-called love affairs result in ghastly murder scenes. Also, crimes of passion, we call it. This is not real love. Real love is a very, very deep, sublime, spiritual thing. Pure, absolutely pure. So we're not so interested in becoming Nishpapa, and for that reason we don't really gain much of a taste, and for that reason we don't really make that much advancement. We just, we have recreational Krishna consciousness, or we keep ourselves pious enough to, it's like trying to keep our nose clean karmically so we don't have to come back too far low. We get at least a good human birth, and maybe I can live in Sugarland or some such place. But real love is something completely beyond our comprehension, and spiritual life is all about this love. It is not about the big light. It's not just about Atma Tattva. We'll just wait for it to pass, because you're going to listen to that anyways. So, right, this is what Big Ben makes this sound, I think. Shabda K, Paula Shabda Shu. Shabda K. It's Krishna, another manifestation. But, yeah, so now what was I saying? I'm the one who got distracted. Yeah, people try to practice spiritual life to serve their own purposes, so that they can have nice karma now and in the future. Or if they're a little bit more advanced than that, in some respects, then they're thinking that at least let me get liberation and I can just stay in stasis forever and I don't have to get muddied by the karmic world anymore. This is not what it's about. Actually, spiritual life means love, it means variety, it means personality, it means activity, it means Raso Vaisa, to quote the Taittiriya Upanishad. Raso Vaisa. That absolute truth is all about rasa. That's why Rupa Goswami wrote his book, The Definitive Science of Bhakti. And what is his book called? Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the ocean of the nectarine rasas produced from Bhakti. What kinds of rasas do you have in Bhakti? You have at least 5 primary rasas, 7 secondary rasas, that's 12 right there. And they mix in different ways, in ways that we can't even conceive of. But we can get a hint by looking at the perverted reflection in this material world. All kinds of rasas are there. The problem is that the rasas in this material world, they will only entangle us in suffering. Either I have to keep taking birth and experiencing frustration and pain due to my sinful past, or at best, I may experience further entanglement in piety, because even piety entangles you. You'll have to take birth, even if you're pious. You may take birth as a devata. You remember when you were Lord Brahma? Do you remember? It is said that every one of us, initially we come into this world first time as Brahma. And Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, the Muni whose name is Vamadev, Vamarishi, he had a stunning realization once. He said, oh my God, once I was the sun, I used to be Manu. And every one of us can actually say this. Maybe that's why he said it. What's possible in this world? Anyway, so we have to keep coming back even if we're pious. And the very best of them, they're trying to get free from this karmic entanglement, but unless they have some alternative that involves rasa, they will most likely fall down again. So service is important, to gain a taste for hearing about Krishna, and hearing especially, what do we want to hear first and foremost? We talk about the 9 processes. Shravanam, but what are we hearing? Kirtanam. We're hearing the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This is considered to be the foremost of all upayas in spiritual life in the Kali Yuga. That's according to Kali Santana Upanishad. But again, we don't have this taste, so service is very important in that way. I hope that covers the question that was asked. I don't know, because we have an anonymous Shota here. We don't know who asked the question. But another aspect of the question is, Krishna promises in Bhagavad Gita, there's no loss or diminution on this path. Anybody know this? What does it mean? Neha Vikramanasosti Pratyavayam Vidyate Salpam Pyasi Dharmasi Trayate Noto Bhayat. Krishna says. So the question is, if there's no diminution, then why is it that we experience in our spiritual life, sometimes we're very inspired and we move up and we get very strict and we follow nicely and we feel even a little taste, sometimes. But then we slack off, we get distracted, we fall back again. Well, what happens? Why does that happen? If Krishna promises that there's no loss or diminution on this path, who has an answer?
Because it's all part of the educational process.
He says it's because it's all part of the educational process. Yeah, that's true. That's one reason I said in the beginning, all of our challenges, all of our tests, it's meant as part of the course. We have to learn hard somehow. And the lessons learned hardest are the lessons learned best. I was reading the 5th canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary. Anybody remember the story of, what's his name? Priyavrata Maharaj. Priyavrata. Remember Priyavrata Maharaj? What happened with him? Who was he, first of all? He didn't want to get married. And, but he was in a Prajapati family. If you're born in a Prajapati family and you don't want to get married, that's a problem. So, he tried to put it off as long as he could and tried to avoid it as much as he could. And finally they brought in the heavy guns, like Narad Muni and Lord Brahma, to convince him that he should get married. So he finally surrendered. Okay, I'll get married. But I just, grant me the benediction that I won't become entangled, because usually when people get married, they become entangled in that. What happens? The man and the woman join together and everything starts to multiply, right? Including other family members. Everything just starts expanding. Prabhupada said, men are good, women are good. Men plus women, not so good. Because it causes, this dynamic is intended to increase the entanglement in the material world. So Priyavrata Maharaj was afraid of this. But he surrendered when they preached to him and really encouraged him, and how we say in Hindi, samchana. So he finally surrendered to it and he got married. What happened after he got married? He got entangled. Just like he feared that he would get entangled. It happened. Actually, if you think about it, you can't think about it unless you read about it, right? And people don't read about it. That's why they don't think about it. But if you do read, then it's supposed to spur some thought. One time when I was in Seattle, the devotees printed up these little cards that we distribute that has the Maha Mantra on it. And at the bottom there was a caption. The caption said, "Please chant this Maha Mantra while you can." If you're a sensitive, intelligent person, that line should spur some thought. But wait a minute, why did they say it like that? Because, you don't really have forever, my friends. This is the point. So in the same way, Srimad Bhagavatam was giving us these stories one after another. Brahma is another one. He didn't want to get proud of the creation that he had to do. But he surrendered and he put together this whole material manifestation, and he found that he got puffed up about it also. He found. So, anyway, the world is an entangling place, as he said. It's just a part of the process that we have to deal with our anarthas and work them out. And if there's no challenge, then where's the no pain, no gain? My Sanskrit professor at University of Washington used to say. So, Priyavrata Maharaj, he got entangled. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur raises a very important point in this regard. He said, why is it? It's essentially the same question that he's asking. Why is it that he got entangled like this? He didn't want, it wasn't his intention even to get married. But he did, and he got entangled anyway. And why do devotees, and this is the specific question, why is it that devotees have to undergo reverses? We can understand with the non-devotees, they're fully under the control of their karma, but supposedly devotees are freed from karma, at least to a large degree. So why do devotees have to undergo reverses, such that they even look just like the karmis, sometimes even look worse? Why? It's a good question. It's a relevant question. You should ask this question. It's not an offensive doubt to raise the question or to wonder about this. So who knows the answer to that question? Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has given us a nice answer. He gives a couple of reasons. One thing may happen that you have your pradabdha karma, and you cannot erase all of your pradabdha karma. What happens if you erase all of your pradabdha karma? You erase your existence. You'll no longer exist here in this world. At least your body will be gone. Zerur. So be careful about that. So that's one thing. But another reason is that, the Prabhu Karma Krishna, he has to keep us alive somehow so we can practice Krishna consciousness. So that's one reason. And to be in a material body means you have to suffer to some degree, even if it's very sad. Believe it or not, even people who live in Sugarland suffer also. Or even if they live in, Bridgeland, they suffer. Even if they're from Beverly Hills, West LA where I grew up, they suffer. It's a fact. It's considered to be the best of, but they suffer. Actually, those people, you read the news, these big Bollywood actors, right? They find them dangling from their ceiling fans usually, isn't it? They're miserable. So it's not like a very so-called successful lifestyle is gonna make you happy. Anyway, I'm getting off track. One thing is that you have to undergo your prarabdha karma just to practice Krishna consciousness. To stay alive, you need some degree of karma operative. Second thing is that Krishna sometimes wants to teach us something through that prarabdha karma. Anybody here in Saturn period right now, you can raise your hand. You don't have to raise your hand. But those of you who have been through Shani Mahadasha or even Saraswati, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's not easy. Because his whole purpose is to make things very difficult. One Jyotish told me, the last word in karmic dispensation, the end of the road, is Shani. There's no word to run and hide. You just got to pay up. And that's the way it is. So, this kind of karma is necessary also to teach us what this material world is really about. Because you can't exist in this world without that kind of thing happening sooner or later. You're going to go into Shani Mahadasha. So that's kind of the same reason, but the third reason, or the second reason I should say, is why devotees suffer sometimes. Sometimes it so happens that the devatas themselves want to make the devotee suffer. That's kind of odd, isn't it? What's an example of devatas wanting to make devotees suffer? Why would a devata do this? Think about it. Even the devatas, they're also conditioned souls. Indra in particular, he has problems from time to time, isn't it? Usually girl trouble, Indra has. But on one occasion at least, he thought that these Brajavasis are just too puffed up and they need to be taught a lesson. He thought like this. This is the problem when you get into a high position in this material world. So, he actually caused some problems for the Brajavasis, and that was a big mistake. Of course, it all worked out well in the end because ultimately it was just arranged to teach us. Anyway, but sometimes for their own inscrutable purposes, those who are higher than us want us to suffer, and sometimes even Krishna wants us to suffer sometimes. Our friend in Dallas, Nityanand Prabhu, many of you know him. I was speaking with him one day when I was in Saturn period. And he told me, the thing is that if Krishna wants to stick it to you, there's nothing you can do about it. That's why in Vrindavan, we don't take shelter of Krishna so much. We take shelter of Srimati Radharani because she knows what it's like. She knows what it's like. She's a devotee, like us. She's soft also. Females are usually more soft, and males can be hard. So sometimes, the gods want us to suffer, and there's nothing you can do about it. Just like if I'm in the car and there's a fly stuck in the taxi and he wants to get out, and I don't care to open the window. There's nothing that fly can do about it because it's my decision, isn't it? And I have adhikar over him. Or what do they call this? In the second canto, chapter 10. Vallabhacharya bases his whole philosophy on these three concepts. Adhibhautic authority, adhidaivic authority, and adhyatmic authority. So I have some adhyatmic authority over the fly. I can decide his fate. I have that power. Limited Aishwaryatva. Aishwarya. So, that's the second reason devotees have to undergo suffering. And the third reason is actually should be the first reason, because it's the most common reason. Why do devotees suffer? Most of the time. What is going to explain that? We should know by now. Anybody's been practicing Krishna consciousness? It comes from our own offenses. We commit offenses. If you offend, especially if you offend a Vaishnava, that is the worst thing. We learned that lesson, or we should have learned that lesson, from the same passage in which that verse I just quoted is taken from. When Krishna says, I'm not independent. Who did he tell that to? He told that to Durvasa Muni when Durvasa Muni was fleeing in fear of his life because the Sudarshan Chakra was chasing him because of his ill treatment of Ambarish Maharaj. He offended a devotee. Sudarshan Chakra was chasing him and he was terrified. And even he went to Vaikuntha and fell at the feet of Lord Vishnu. And Lord Vishnu said, Aham Bhakta Varadhina. I myself am subservient to my devotee. I can't help you. You have to go to Ambarish Maharaj and beg forgiveness from him. So offenses to the Vaishnavas are actually the main reason that we have to undergo setbacks to our devotional service. And this is why we have to be very careful. Why else would Srila Prabhupada advise us every morning to recite these 10 offenses against the holy name, for example? Because we won't take it seriously. Unless and we cannot actually try to rid ourselves of these offenses if we don't keep reminding ourselves what they are. I know devotees who have forgotten what they are. That's what happens if you don't do your sadhana every single day. You don't forget to eat because you have a taste for it. But we forget to purify ourselves because we simply don't have a taste. Here's how you get your taste. You render service. And what kind of service do you render to the person who is free from the anarthas that you are suffering from? Obviously. You can't go to a drunkard and expect that he's going to help you get free from your, what do they have in India? They have it. Nasha Mukti Kendra. All over the place. Especially in Punjab, they're all addicted to heroin and other things. So, Mahad Seva, this is the point. This will raise us up in Krishna consciousness, provided we do not commit offenses. Because even if you're doing great, if you become a little slack, if you become a little neglectful, if you become a little bit proud, maybe also that happens, yes, and you offend someone, you'll go down. And it's been seen too many times. I hate to say it. In fact, even Krishna says it. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna himself gives us all the statistics, doesn't he? In which chapter? Where does he give some statistics about who is successful in Krishna consciousness and who isn't? Anybody know the verse I'm thinking of? Because you're not hearing every day, that's why. Or you're shy, maybe. How about Manushyanam Sahasreshu Kashchit Yatati Siddhaye. Out of so many thousands, one person is going to really try. The rest of them are doing lip service. And out of so many people who are really trying, only one person really becomes perfect, Krishna says. One out of so many thousands, 1 out of 1,000, and then another 1,000, only one. That means 1 in a million. That is the statistic. It's very rare, actually. And this is why Prabhupada told us, you should not be surprised when someone goes away from Krishna consciousness. You should be surprised when someone stays. It's not easy. It's Kali Yuga after all. But now that you have heard this, you have something to work with, and some way to recognize, why am I regressing in my Krishna consciousness? Why don't I have a taste for devotional service? What can I possibly do about it? Hopefully, that should be a little bit more clear now. I hope. Anyway, I'm going to stop here. But if Maharaj wants to make any comment, or if anybody else has any questions, we can discuss it further.
Sometimes we suffer because Krishna wants us to do some service Arjuna, he had to suffer all these things by killing Bhishma, by killing Drona, by killing his nephews. Yeah, because Krishna had some purpose. Okay, I have to do this. And ultimately it's for everybody's good. But, okay, has to be done. Yeah.
Any questions? No questions. What is your name, Prabhu?
Gopal Krishna.
Gopal.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Good to have you. Yes, association. Looking forward to the Bhagavatam class tomorrow. I had a comment to make first. So you mentioned at the beginning Subhashit about who is a Mahatma and who is a Duratma.
Yeah.
So when I was a kid in Sanskrit class, I learned this Subhashit. Yatha chittam, tatha vacha, yatha vachas, tatha kriya. Chitte vacha kriyayam cha, sadhunam ekarupata.
Nice.
So definition of a sadhu is one whose mind, body and words are all the same.
Proper.
Yes. Ekarup.
It kind of reminds me, that also kind of reminds me of what we hear from the Shruti mantras. If you have pure food, you'll have pure thoughts. If you have pure thoughts, you'll have pure activities. If you have pure activities, your future is pure. Same idea. Any other questions or any comments?
Yeah, I have a question. Jayadratha Maharaja's upcoming book is called the Vanaprastha Adventure. So I wanted to hear from you, when should we start preparing for Vanaprastha and how should we go about it?
Raise your hand if you're interested in Vanaprastha life. Not so many hands. Not surprising. The material world is like a vortex. That's why the sannyasis and the brahmacharis, they only stay with householders long enough to milk a cow, because they don't stay brahmachari and sannyasi very long otherwise. It is like a vortex. You get sucked into it, and because you're spinning down, it's very hard to get out of that thing. Very hard. So the Vanaprastha Adventure, I thought that book was published already.
It's available online.
E-version. Yeah, so when shall we begin to prepare for Vanaprastha life? Well, there's no bar. You can prepare when you're 20. I mean, you have to do your duty, of course. If you have fulfilled your grahastha duty, assuming we're married, then, as soon as the kids are grown and married and on their own, you're free. But definitely the Shastra tells us, Pancha Shordvam Vanam Vrajet. After 50 years, you should definitely think about going to the forest, and for us, that means going to Vrinda forest, Vrindavana. So, or Mayapur, like that. So, this is another place in the Shastra. It's described when you start seeing too many gray hairs on your head. That's like nature's little tap on the shoulder, isn't it? Excuse me, you're not going to be here forever. So, these are some of the things. Old age is like that. It just keeps, subtle or not so subtle reminder that we're not really in our actual home. We have tried to make it very cozy here, and maybe we've even succeeded to some degree, but nobody stays forever. We were discussing this morning. And raise your hand if you heard this morning's Srimad Bhagavatam class. Raise your hand so I can see. Okay, several people, but it bears repeating. It's guaranteed that with every breath you take, you can chant Hare Krishna, correct? You can chant every time you inhale. When you exhale, you can chant. It's no bar. But it's not guaranteed that you have even one more breath. That's not guaranteed. So similarly, any day, any time, anywhere, anything can happen. And it does happen. Usually it happens to other people until it doesn't. Until it happens to us, then we get a very rude awakening. And when it happens to us, usually when you're in Saturn period, or maybe Rahu Ketu, these are the Krura Grahas, then it's a realization that you cannot express to anyone, and even if you could, nobody would be able to understand it. Empathy is, therefore, the Krishna says in chapter 6, text 32, the symptom, in his opinion, of the best yogi. somebody who can really empathize. If you explain your position to somebody and they can understand it, and even better than that is somebody who can understand your position even before you explain it. Not so many people like that, but all the best preachers are like that. I saw this in, of course, Prabhupada. Tamal Krishna Goswami, also very well known. He could sit with somebody for, on an average, I would say about 2 or 3 minutes. It took him to figure out everything about that person. Empathy. I asked my godbrother, Gopi Pranadana, well, where does this empathy come from? He just shrugged his shoulders and said, it's a gift from above. You can't practice it. It's not a skill. It's a blessing. But it's very important. So, yeah, I don't know if I'm kind of wandering off the topic or not, but is that okay?
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Yes.
So Prabhu, in the beginning of your lecture, you started with the verse Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. Can you, if you know, I know we're running out of time, it's 8:30 already, but if you can quickly just kind of go into nuts and bolts of that and enlighten us. I know Brahma is substratum, but you know, if you can just say.
This is a famous Vedic aphorism. It's made famous mostly by Shankaracharya. He has certain statements from the Shruti mantra that he has elevated, in his own opinion, to the status of what he calls Mahavakyas. So, you know, Sarvam Khalu Idam Brahma, what does it mean literally? It means that all this is Brahma. It's kind of similar to the Ishopanishad, which says Isha Vasim Idam Sarvam, but it's a little less personal. So, you know, we also don't disagree with that. You know, everything is Krishna, we would say, or as I pointed out, you know, because we're not so concerned with Krishna in terms of devotional service, and Radharani is a lot more relevant to us. So, Sarvam Kalavidam Radha, we can say, when the person actually made it like that. Yes.
So Prabhu, when I was thinking about this, my mind was going off to Paramatma. So we have Paramatma everywhere in each and every atom. So when we say Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma, so then I'm not able to do 1 + 1 here or 2 + 2. So my mind goes off to Paramatma feature of the Lord. So is this the transformation of Brahman, or in what sense? I'm just trying to understand, figure it out.
This is described at length in Jiva Goswami's Bhagavat Sandarbha. Of course, what we find emphasized more in the Brahma Sutra even is the Brahman feature. Brahman emphasizes the Sat aspect of the Supreme Absolute Truth. Existence, eternity. But there's really not much to grab a hold of there, is there? I mean, it's no variety, no personality also, just existence. Okay, so yeah, that's peaceful. You don't have to die anymore. Great. And that's liberated also, therefore. A little bit more interactive, if you will, is the entrance of the Paramatma feature of the Lord, who embodies the Sat and Chit aspects, awareness. He's called Antaryami. He's the witness within everyone's heart, and he's guiding us also. He's permitting us to do whatever we do, even if it's bad for us. But he's watching, a little bit like a parent who lets the child have some independence, even if they're doing something dangerous, but he's standing very close by. This is Paramatma feature. So there's some personal involvement, and sometimes the yogis, they appreciate the Lord's presence in that little bit less impersonal feature and more interactive feature. But what's missing? The ecstasy is missing. That can be supplied only by Ananda, Hladani Shakti. That is Srimati Radharani's department. And that requires the presence of Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. When we approach Bhagavan but we're not exactly ready to accommodate his personality. Many people are in this category. Then we can realize only up to this Brahman effulgence aspect, impersonal, all-pervasive, eternal aspect of the Lord. When we make conscious choices, and when we hear the still small voice of Paramatma within our hearts and we react to them, maybe we have established some degree of a relationship with the Paramatma, but it's still pretty vague. Not exactly impersonal, but not exactly personal at the same time. It's limited reciprocation. The full reciprocation only comes when we accommodate the personality of God, and that too many people are not ready to do. Because of what? There's only one reason. Irshya. Sorry to say. Irshya. We actually envy that. Because here's a person just like me. I'm a person, he's a person. I'm eternal, he's eternal. I'm aware, he's aware. I have feelings, he has feelings. I have desires, he has desires. But he's better than me. And he controls me also. We can't handle that. And there's only one reason for that. In the words of Sridhar Swami, the reason for that is Parotkarsha Sahanam. Para Utkarsha Asahanam. You understand? We cannot tolerate somebody else outshining us. That's what it comes down to. It's called envy, in a word. So this is why people don't embrace the existence of the personality of God. This is why people refuse to serve the Supreme Lord. This is why they prefer, the detached, cool, observatory nature of the Ashtanga Yoga, where they can meditate on Paramatma within the heart, but don't really have to do anything with it and don't have to interact too closely, where it gets too hot. And this is certainly why people prefer the impersonal absolute. You don't even have to recognize it as that he's a he, he's an it instead. Neuter terms. Om Tat Sat. You see? And it gets worse, actually. The people who can't even admit spiritual existence to begin with, who are they? They're like the Buddhists, the Ajivikas, any of the Gnostics. And it gets worse than that also. There are people who don't care about anything that's higher in life at all. They just live on the animal platform. And these are the materialists. And especially even among the materialists, it also gets worse. And you can be a pious person coming to the temple just to keep your nose clean, as we described. Or, you can be a sinful person. Las Vegas. Anyone gone to Las Vegas here? Raise your hand. You don't have to admit it. What stays in Vegas? What is the saying? They say something like that.
What happens in Vegas?
What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
It's a new phrase.
Yeah.
Whatever happens in Vegas comes out on Facebook.
One thing I can say for sure in my experience is that, the people who go to Las Vegas first and break every principle first, who is it? The Iyengars. Yes. Bhattacharyas. Nambudris, yes. The so-called Brahmins. They want out of the cage. That's what it is. And it's the same reason, envy. I don't want to admit an authority, I want to be the authority. We want to be the enjoyer. This is the problem. So, as long as we approach the supreme truth with these varying degrees of envy, we will receive varying degrees of revelation. This is Jiva Goswami's explanation in Bhagavad Sundara. But as soon as we're prepared to admit the possibility of the personality of Godhead, and more than that, if we're prepared to actually serve the personality of Godhead, then he will reveal to us. So if the question is, what is the importance of service? Here you go. Bhagavan reveals himself, commensurate to the degree that we're prepared to serve him. Spashta? Yeah.
I still have maybe a last section of this question that I asked. Can I use Brahman and Brahma Jyoti interchangeably?
I think so. I mean, they're kind of like
Because Prabhupada uses that in his purports kind of interchangeably.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, you know, sun and sunshine we use interchangeably. The sun is on my head, right? Or the sunshine is on my head. You know, it's not that big of a difference. I mean, actually, if you think about it, if the sun itself were on your head, you would have a bad day. In fact, the whole planet would probably be destroyed if the sun is the size we're told it is. All right, anything else? Going once? Going twice? No, somebody here? Yeah, green shirt. Are you playing or are you raising your hand? You want to ask a question privately? Not surprising. Most people I find, they won't raise their hand in the class. After the class ends, then you're surrounded by a crowd who won't let you go home. Okay, so we'll end here. Thank you all very much for listening so patiently, and we hope that we've been some help for anyone.